Okay, so as you can see, this image is up. I'm not sure how you're listening to this, but on December 11th, the German foreign minister delivered a note to the U.S. Embassy declaring that the United States had virtually created a state of war against Germany by arming Germany's opponents, i.e., Great Britain, and attacking German warships and merchant vessels in the high sea. And like I said in the previous podcast, basically there was an undeclared war between Germany and the U.S. in the North Atlantic, even before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Um, and it declared this note that Germany considers herself as being in a state of war against the United States. 2 hours later in Berlin, Hitler went before the Reichstag in a very theatrical performance, declared that the Jews and their Franklin Roosevelt, again, notice that Hitler puts the Jewish community even first before Roosevelt, intend to destroy one state after another. And they seek to destroy the National Socialist Germany of today. And this decision united two regional wars, the war in the Pacific, the US against Japan, the US and Britain against Japan, and the war in Europe, which now is the US, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union against Germany. And it united these two regional conflicts into one single world war. And again, note that this decision came just as the German army in front of Moscow is getting pushed back uh, by the surprise Soviet counterattack. Army Group North has laid siege to Leningrad, but it has not moved any further south than that. And Army Group South, any more than the siege. And Army Group South is just its operations have slowed because winter is occurring in the Ukrainian area. So, from Hitler's point of view, things have right when Pearl Harbor happens, things are really going very, very poorly in Russia, most notably the Russian counteroffensive on December 5th. So, the question is, why does Hitler make the decision to declare war on the United States, which in retrospect seems so illogical and in fact was a major mistake on his part? Well, there were a couple of things going on in Hitler's mind. First of all, the US and Great Britain were already technically involved in the war against Japan. So the US and Great Britain were already part of a coalition, only it's against Japan at this point. And this is at a time when Germany is at war with Great Britain. So in the Pacific, there's already a U.S. Great Britain coalition, although it doesn't exist in the Atlantic yet. But Hitler assumed that at some point that the U.S. and Great Britain would turn their attention, especially the U.S. Great Britain already was paying full attention to Hitler. That the coalition between the U.S. and Great Britain, which already existed in the Pacific, because the reason there was a coalition in the Pacific is that the Japanese had taken over British possessions in the Pacific, especially Malaysia. So you already have a coalition there. So Hitler's assuming that this coalition will ultimately begin eyeing Germany, and that the war is probably the war against the United States is probably inevitable. And I think there's a part of Hitler that wants to move first. He wants to declare war on the U.S. before the U.S. can declare war on him. He wants to make it seem to the global community like he's the one that's in charge of events, that he doesn't let events come to him. He takes control over events. And in fact, from Hitler's point of view, what had happened with the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the way he viewed it as a tremendous stroke of good luck, just at a time when he needed some good luck, at a time where he's, especially in front of Moscow, his army is being pushed back over 100. Um, so basically, I'll give you three reasons why Hitler declared war on the U.S. Number one, Hitler already thought that functionally the U.S. and Germany were at war. As I've said many times already, there's already been fighting in the North Atlantic as the merchant ships travel from U.S. ports to Great Britain with Lend-Lease supplies, and then also merchant ships start traveling to the Soviet Union. So, given what had already been a shooting war, the sinking of an American ship, the sinking of German submarines, from Hitler's point of view, the war had really already started, and he was just making a formality of a conflict that already existed. Number two, as I just previously said, he believed that the U.S. would soon declare war on Germany. The U.S. was part of a coalition with Great Britain in the Pacific, and it was just a matter of time before the U.S. Declared war on Germany. And he wanted to make the first action, if for nothing else, for reasons of propaganda. As I said, he wanted to seem like he's the one in control of the situation. He's not waiting for events, he's controlling events. Um, Third, and this is something I haven't talked about yet, Hitler significantly overestimated the Japanese Navy. When Pearl Harbor was bombed, Hitler, when he got news, he was just thrilled, and he told one of his aides, "We now have a partner that hasn't been defeated for 1,000 years." And so he thought that the Japanese Navy would give the U.S. Navy fits, and that it would give the U.S. Navy, it would cause the U.S. Navy so much trouble that it would prevent the United States from joining in the European war for years. That the war against Japan, the U.S. war against Japan, would be so difficult that for the United States, that it would be years before the United States could come into war against Germany. And he vastly, not only did he vastly overrate the power of the Japanese Navy and Japan generally, he vastly underestimated the industrial strength of the United States. The U.S. industry actually produced more goods in World War II than England, Japan, and the Soviet Union combined. So Hitler just had no idea about how incredibly powerful U.S. industry is. And then secondly, how quickly that the U.S. would be able to create a mass army, train and equip and send both to the Pacific and to Europe a huge army, which ultimately numbered 16 million men, which is incredible, and about 350,000 women. So Hitler overestimated the Japanese, underestimated U.S. industrial might, and also U.S. military capacity. And of course, industrial might and military capacity are very much tied together.